Hello and welcome to Always Bored, Never Boring. Just before Christmas, thanks to Avalon Hill and Kent Kaliber, I received an early review copy of HeroQuest First Light, the brand new alternative core set for introducing players to games of high adventure in a world of magic. I have already unboxed the set and shared my thoughts in considerable detail, but something I do like to do with any HeroQuest product is take a deep dive into the included campaign book. I work through each of the missions and share my thoughts on the overall narrative, anything I particularly like, and anything that I would have personally preferred to see done differently. So, that's what I'm going to do today for HeroQuest First Light. Naturally, that means this video will be chock full of spoilers and should only be viewed by players who intend to take on the role of Zargon. If you're a hero, move on, or you will ruin the experience for yourself. Hopefully, I will see you in the next video. Okay, First Light, in a rather unusual move, isn't a prequel to the events of the original core set. Neither is it a campaign charting the activities of those same heroes from the original core set. This adventure introduces a brand new set of heroes who just happen to look and act a lot like those other heroes, undergoing missions at the exact same time as those other heroes, which is odd. Makes you wonder if Mentor is actually magically creating disposable flesh golems to feed into the meat grinder of an adventurer's life in an endless battle against the forces of Zargon. That's a cheery thought. Regardless, at the start of the quest book, there is some background information for Zargon's Eyes Only, where we are introduced to the Seer Scale lineage. The Seer Scale are an ancient line of dragons, long thought extinct, that were cursed with the ability to see the fate of others, but never themselves. Eventually, the last of the dragons, Ethlerin, passed away, but it was rumoured she left behind an egg the colour of the midnight sky. This egg was eventually found by the warlock Quindrak, who used the power of the egg to develop a magical technique called Synchroform. This power allows the user to become one with another creature, siphoning their life force to adopt their form. When Cassandra the Witch Queen heard of Quindrak's ambitions, she mocked him and banished him from Kalos, but he took with him the egg that allows him to practice his powers. He now resides in the ancient dwarven halls of Tulvor, where he works on adopting his most powerful form yet. None of this is known to the heroes at the outset. They are only told that they have been summoned by Mentor because Cassandra has mobilized her forces from the ruins of Kalos as she searches for a rogue operative who has defected with a powerful artifact. Prince Magnus has ordered Sir Ragnar to scout the plains of death to determine the whereabouts of Cassandra's forces. Ragnar has a good understanding of the enemy as he was recently imprisoned by the Orc warlord Ulag. Having been freed, he is now working with Mentor to discover what Cassandra is up to now. I see absolutely no problem at all with his presence here. I'm sure that will all work out fine. So, putting aside my misgivings about setting this storyline at the same time as the storyline from the original core set, this is still exciting for me. The story of Sir Ragnar is something that I was hoping to see fully developed in Rise of the Dreadmoon, and I was disappointed in how it was handled there. For those in the know, Ragnar eventually defects to join the forces of Zargon, and you face him as an enemy in Rise of the Dreadmoon. But I really didn't think enough was made of that. He turns up once for an underwhelming fight, and then that's it. But now, First Light is an opportunity to drill more into this interesting side character's tale. We are going to hear him talk, learn more about his personality, and add some flesh to a story that has been something of a mystery since it was first introduced 35 years ago. And it isn't long until our heroes are introduced to Ragnar. In Quest 1, the border fort of Ingulden, they are ushered into a war room where Ragnar is raging at his gathered generals about what he perceives to be poor tactical choices. He seems surly, and there is a tone that he doesn't think much to Mentor and his old book. But he welcomes the heroes and tells them they are to head to the ruined border fort where Ragnar deployed scouts that have never reported back. This mission is pretty straightforward. There is a nice little cinematic moment right at the start where the entrance stairway collapses as the heroes arrive, forcing them to find an alternative way to escape. And eventually they will be forced to open one of two doorways that will set off alarms and cause the other marked doors to open, heralding the arrival of more greenskins. This first mission also includes both a cupboard and a fireplace, which means you can immediately incorporate the new rules Healing Hearth and Sly Storage. When searching in a room with a fireplace, instead of drawing treasure, a hero may heal 1 life point. When searching in a room with a cupboard, a hero draws 2 treasure cards and resolves both. The other interesting thing in this mission is there are numerous dead bodies scattered around the place, the doomed scouts Ragnar sent to investigate. A hero adjacent to a body can spend their action to investigate it, and this is our first introduction to unique quest-specific actions. It will not be the last. The bodies may randomly hold small amounts of money, but one of them holds a note that says there is a traitor seeking the Night Egg. Alas, the name of the traitor has been smudged. A second body holds a note advising that Cassandra is seeking Quindrak in Tool of War, and there are spies everywhere. For new players, this talk of spies and traitors will be most perplexing. For established players, it's not too much of a mystery. Quest 2, the Warlock of Tool of War, begins with Mentor puzzling over the note regarding a traitor and an egg. He says Lore Tome reveals nothing on this subject matter, causing Ragnar to snort through his nose and suggest archiving that mouldy tome. This causes Mentor to snap in retaliation, suggesting there is a growing animosity between the two, and then he orders the heroes to explore Tool of War. This is our first mission using the cavern side of our double-sided game board, so this is really exciting. And the map features a new twist on a familiar gimmick from the original core set: magical portals that teleport heroes to different areas of the board. The portals are represented by doors in the middle of some rooms. Each portal is numbered from 1 to 7, and when heroes spend a movement point to step through a portal, they can select any other number to teleport to. This will allow them to fast travel around the board as long as they remember the correct numbers, and they can bypass much of the winding corridors. Eventually, they will stumble into a room where Quindrak is in the process of transforming into a mighty dragon. You replace the sorcerer miniature with the new dragon miniature, and this is awesome. I have seen some people comment on the design of the dragon miniature and how it isn't quite dragony enough. The fact it's a form that Quindrak shifts into might explain that particular design choice. He still retains some slightly human aspects. Or, then again, maybe it's just a design choice. Interestingly, Quindrak is still perfecting the synchro form technique, so in his dragon form he only has 3 body points. But he definitely isn't messing around. He instantly casts Ball of Flame on the first hero unlucky enough to find him, and if the hero should defeat him, he regains his human form and vanishes, mocking the heroes by claiming he has seen their bleak fortunes. The heroes will then find a note from Quindrak stating that the dragon synchro form requires a great deal of something. The ink fades before they can glean the important information. The only other thing to note here is that during the course of this adventure, the heroes may find the Talisman of Lore, and this raises an issue that neither the rules nor the campaign addresses. If your heroes have already acquired specific artifacts, should they be allowed to claim duplicates? If you watched my previous review of First Light, you will know that it contains exactly the same artifact cards that you will find in the original core set, even if some of them, like the Spirit Blade, don't get used in this campaign. As far as I can see, this has been done simply so that players will have access to the same artifacts regardless of which core set they start with, so when they play something like Return of the Witchlord or Prophecy of Telor, they will have the artifact cards they need. I don't believe the intent is for heroes to be able to find duplicates of these powerful artifacts by playing through both core set campaigns, although I guess that is up to Zargon, and every Zargon will have their own preference. But it would have been nice to have a little note for returning players to indicate an alternative prize if they already have those artifacts in their possession. Quest 3 is the Oracle of Morlenis. It begins with Mentor explaining to the heroes what the power of synchro form is, and suggesting Quindrak may be attempting to harness the power of the ancient line of Seer Scale. He then orders the heroes to visit the High Priest at the Oracle of Morlenis to see if he can help them. Sir Ragnar is notably absent for this exchange. As the heroes approach the temple, they notice it is eerily quiet, and if the heroes hasten to the center chamber, they will find orcs holding the High Priest hostage. This High Priest is represented by the Eye of Mentor token, which is fine. While it's nice to have miniatures for NPCs, this one is about to die. He lives just long enough to tell the heroes they need to find the Visions of King Igraine in the library to the north, which should be taken to Prince Magnus. In the large chamber, the heroes will also find treasure chests containing offerings to the Oracle. If the heroes wish to, they can take these offerings, which amount to 800 gold pieces. This is a bad idea. When the heroes go to the library, they can make use of another quest-specific action, investigating the bookshelves. There is a random chance of finding the Visions of the King Igraine, and a random chance of finding a booby trap. Unfortunately, it is necessary for the heroes to keep rolling until they randomly succeed, which isn't the greatest design when it's an objective they must complete. It probably would have been better to design the mission so that they rolled if they hadn't first rescued the priest, but once the priest has told them about the book, they succeed automatically. Additionally, the quest never mentions that the heroes must retrieve the book. It insinuates it. The priest says, ensure it is brought to Prince Magnus, but there are no rules in the quest text to make it clear that the heroes cannot leave the dungeon without it. This can lead to a narrative blip in Mission 4, so it's something Zargon players should be aware of. Later on in the level, heroes can use a quest-specific action to talk to the Oracle. If they declined to steal the offerings earlier on, they will be blessed. If they stole the offerings, they will be cursed. The blessing is a one-use power. You can use it to reveal a room beyond a closed door, or to reroll all your dice after attacking, defending, or moving. And this is great. I love this sort of thing. Little one-time boons, special abilities heroes can employ when they are in a tough spot. The curse is an ongoing effect. Once per quest, Zargon can force a cursed hero to reroll all of their dice and then decide which roll to keep. Removing the curse involves donating 800 gold coins to charity between quests. And I love that too, a decent punishment for the heroes making a bad choice. At the end of the mission, the heroes will face Quindrak again in his dragon form, only he is stronger now. He has 4 body points and has access to more spells. I love a recurring villain, and the heroes should be duly concerned as they notice how he is gaining in power. Of course, if they defeat the dragon, Quindrak vanishes again. Not much more to say here, but as the point of these videos is to be a bit nitpicky, why has Quindrak installed his cupboard facing the wall? Quest 4 is the Fortress of the Fire King. In the introduction, Mentor is reading the Visions of King Igraine. Mentor admits he didn't know the king had the power of foresight, and Ragnar takes the chance to mock him for this. He then snatches away the book and says he will take it to the prince. At this point, I feel the narrative is laying on Ragnar's animosity a bit thick. I like the improved sense of story. You feel these are real characters you are interacting with, rather than two-dimensional quest givers. But if you didn't already know Ragnar was a bad egg, it starts to be glaringly obvious. After Ragnar has left, Mentor tells the heroes to go to the Fortress of the Fire King. Unfortunately, the narrative doesn't really give any reason for doing this, so the mission feels a bit like busy work rather than a stepping stone in the resolution of a mystery. At the start of this mission, an orc and a goblin are hauling a treasure chest down the corridor. They slide the chest through a secret door when the heroes arrive, which is a nice little story beat to indicate these monsters do have lives. They do have jobs to do when the heroes aren't around. And of course, it indicates the presence of a secret door for heroes who are paying attention. If the heroes find the armory, there is a fun little mechanism to determine what they find there. They shuffle all the equipment cards, deal 4, and get to keep the one with the lowest value. I really like that, and it's a good use of the equipment cards, which otherwise don't really have much purpose beyond being a reference while the heroes are at the shop. This map also introduces some fun new concepts and enemies. There are open doors, which means when you find them you immediately populate any rooms beyond, allowing for more monsters to get involved in the action. There are also elite dread warriors, the Doom Guard, witch hands, magical assistants to Cassandra, and undead enemies that can phase through walls, allowing them to flank the heroes and bypass bottlenecking in doorways. It's worth noting, the final room has several secrets, each revealed when a hero searches for treasure. I only allow heroes to search once in each room for treasure to keep the game ticking along and to prevent heroes getting too much loot too quickly. That means I will have to slightly alter how that room works, but it's very easy to do. At the end of Quest 4, the heroes will find a map to the secret passage in the Mountain of Tulvor. They take this to Mentor, who is studying it at the beginning of Quest 5, The Horrors of Synchroform, the second mission to use the reverse of the double-sided map. In this mission, the heroes are going to venture into Quindrak's secret caverns where he has been performing his synchroform experiments. They are looking for clues to battle Quindrak, but also they are charged with ending the suffering of those experiments, which is dark. For a kid's game, that's dark. Throughout this adventure, the heroes will find prison cells containing creatures drained of their essence to fuel the synchroform magic. But each creature has also gained some of Quindrak's powers in return. Each one is randomly allocated a spell, either Tempest, Lightning Bolt, or Ball of Flame. So that's pretty neat, regular enemies popping up with new abilities. Eventually, the heroes will face Quindrak again in a huge chamber where wall tokens are used to represent pillars, breaking up the wide open space. The sorcerer's dragon form is even stronger than before, but should he be defeated, he will vanish. The heroes should be used to that by now. After the battle, the heroes will find an antechamber where Quindrak is collecting up his research. He will transform again, this time into a gargoyle, before making his escape. The heroes may also find the wizard's cloak and a spell ring, which is really going to amp up the power of the wizard. And at this point, the heroes will have faced Quindrak 4 times. And I do really like the fact we have a proper recurring villain, a character who feels like a constant thorn in the hero's sides. But it does start to feel a bit one note. To keep facing Quindrak only for him to escape starts to be a bit repetitive, and I can see heroes becoming tired of this same gag repeating. Nevertheless, we are at the midpoint of the campaign, and there is excitement afoot. Cassandra is about to arrive with her armies, and the heroes are going to be embroiled in a war between the Witch Queen and Quindrak. First, there is a narrative beat where Mentor advises the heroes Sir Ragnar hasn't been seen since he went to give the visions of King Igraine to Prince Magnus. What a surprise. They are then informed of the battle that will be fought between Cassandra and Quindrak. While this is going on, the heroes must go on a mission to find a magical ring that will bind a dead dwarven king and his army to their bidding because of an oath the king made in life. And because Stephen Baker does love dipping into the Lord of the Rings for inspiration in his quest lines. This leads us directly into Quest 6, The Return of the King. The Ring of Return. Another mission that uses our new board layout. At the beginning of this quest, Mentor says Cassandra has spies everywhere, and he insinuates he no longer trusts Ragnar and his men. He then gives the heroes a glyph key scroll. There is no card for this artifact, it is a single-use item that will destroy a single magical glyph. The most interesting part about this mission is the battle. Heroes will witness a contest of might between Cassandra's Dread Warriors and Quindrak's Greenskins. The heroes are positioned in an adjacent room, and then the hero players will take control of Cassandra's army. On their turn, a player will pick any one Dread Warrior to control, moving and fighting against Quindrak's Orcs and Goblins, plus Quindrak in his dragon form. Once the battle is over, normal gameplay resumes, with Zargon controlling any surviving monsters. And what a neat idea. Something different and exciting, and again another story beat that breathes life into the adventure. The monsters have their own stuff going on, their own political jostlings. They don't just sit around waiting for the heroes. The main aim of this mission is to use the glyph key scroll at the altar to deactivate the magical defences and recover the Ring of Return. The powers of the ring are unknown to the heroes at first, they are not allowed to use it in this mission and must return it to Mentor. Finally, as the heroes are leaving, they will trigger a secret door to open, spawning more Dread Warriors that will chase them. This should add a bit of excitement to the last few turns of the mission. There is one thing to note here though. There are 2 exits off the map, and one of them has a dotted line with an arrow pointing towards it. In the quest notes, there is no indication of what this dotted line represents. It looks like it might mean the wall token is supposed to move to seal the exit, but I don't know. I've gone back through all the notes and I can't seem to find anything to explain it. Quest 7 is the Tomb of the Fire King. Mentor orders the heroes to take the Ring of Return to the tomb to summon the king's spirit. The fun thing here is when the heroes find the Tomb of the King, they will be greeted by his spirit and they will be asked to hand over the ring. If they do, the spirit turns out to be one of Cassandra's witch hands and they run off with the ring. If the heroes say no, they must fight the witch hand, plus an entourage of skeletons and a gargoyle. Even if the ring is stolen, the heroes will get to win it back by defeating the witch hand later, and when they find the real spirit of the king, they will be gifted with the Hearthkin Horn, another single-use artifact that should really have a card included but doesn't. The horn, when blown, lets each hero summon a single skeleton that will fight for them until it is destroyed or the current quest ends. That is a really lovely way to introduce the concept of henchmen early on. A few final notes on artifacts for this adventure. In order to acquire the horn, the quest text says the heroes leave the Ring of Return on the King's tomb. There is no mention of them taking it back, but I think you probably are allowed to take it back, at which point it becomes a regular Ring of Return. Also in this mission, the heroes can find a suit of Borin's armour. I would be inclined to sub in something else if they already have a suit of Borin's armour. Quest 8 is King Thorgrim's Trove. In the introduction, Mentor warns you not to sound the horn until he signals to do so. He then sends the heroes to King Thorgrim's mine because I guess they need something to do. Admittedly, some of the reasoning for these quests feels a bit too much like Mentor telling the kids, go out and play and don't come back until it's dark. This is a fairly short, straightforward dungeon, but it has some interesting twists, like in a double-sized room where 2 great tokens have been placed together to create an access point for abominations that will continuously spawn. There is also a staircase near the start that will send out a steady stream of dread warriors to harass the heroes. There is a really fun trap where a glyph is carved into a piece of wood in the room with the fireplace. If the heroes search for traps, they throw the wood into the fire and disarm the glyph. If they don't, and they search for treasure, the room gets hit with the Firestorm spell. I would adapt this slightly and make it so the heroes have to figure out how to disarm the glyph by themselves. Finally, there is a secret door hidden behind a bookcase which reveals Thorgrim's Trove, a crossbow, a suit of armour, and Fortune's longsword. This quest really needed a Dragon Slayer sword. Thorgrim could have been woven into the narrative as an embittered king who hunted dragons with his powerful Dragon Slayer sword and was cursed to unlife as a result until he had fulfilled an oath to protect the last dragons of the Seer Scale. I think that would have made all these trips into his home feel like they had more weight, and it would have gifted the heroes with a more powerful, more relevant weapon. Quest 9 is called Sound the Hearthkin Horn, and is the 4th mission to use the new map. It continues directly from Quest 8, so Mentor has to speak to the heroes with the power of his mind. He reminds the heroes they have a special tool at their disposal, and that they must fight through 5 halls of trial to reach the dread warrior Abraxas, who is general to Quindrak's army. Furthermore, Mentor has used his power to magically reveal all of the secret doors on the map. If heroes use a secret door to enter a room, they surprise the monsters inside and roll 1 additional attack dice that turn. Do note, this wording is a bit iffy. Rolling 1 additional attack dice that turn could mean they can roll 1 additional attack dice for 1 attack, or 1 additional attack dice for each of their attacks if they are in a position to make multiple attacks. Zargon is going to have to rule on that one, but I would say only the first attack should get the bonus. Not much more to say here except there is a big battle at the end with lots of enemies led by Abraxas, who is quite a chunky adversary. However, skeletons summoned by the Hearthkin Horn roll 2 extra attack and defend dice while they are in the final room. Having dealt with Abraxas, the heroes can leave. There is a nice shortcut integrated into the circular map design to avoid backtracking. And we are on to Quest 10, Might of the Synchroform. Once again, we are on the new reverse side of the double-sided board, and this mission continues directly from Quest 9 without first returning to Mentor. However, Mentor speaks to the heroes using Far Voice to let them know it's time for the final conflict with Quindrak, and he gives each hero the power to re-roll 1 dice roll involving mind points once in this quest. There are just 3 important chambers in this mission. First, the Hall of the Dead. Whenever an undead monster would be defeated in this room, roll 1 dice and add 1 for each other undead monster in the room. On a 6 or more, the monster is unharmed. This is a cool trick that will make the fight more challenging, while also incorporating a nice sense of the heroes slowly dismantling the magical connections that are keeping the undead enemies fighting. The second chamber has 3 spaces that will trigger secret doors, unleashing a torrent of additional enemies. The third chamber is an open-air arena where the heroes will face Quindrak for the final time. And Quindrak is something of a badass. He starts in Warlock form, and each time he is attacked, he throws a meteor at his assailant, rolling 2 attack dice. When he is defeated, Zargon should shuffle Abomination, Dread Warrior, Gargoyle, Goblin and Orc enemy cards and deal 1 to determine which creature Quindrak turns into. Each time a form is defeated, Quindrak will change again until all of the forms have been defeated, at which point he will assume the most powerful dragon form, bathing the room in fire with a chance of inflicting 1 body point of damage on each hero before entering the final stage of the conflict. When Quindrak finally slumps to the ground, the egg he is clutching cracks and the last of the Seer Scale dragons is birthed. This dragon will flee to a hidden location awaiting the call of Mentor, which is a lovely little story beat. It's nice to know the heroes have a powerful ally growing in strength in a secret place, ready to turn the tide of battle one day. Finally, the heroes get a conclusion, which attempts to tie together all of the plot strands so they are in sync with the conclusion from the campaign in the original core set. We are told that Cassandria's army was not defeated, but only recalled to join with Skullmar because of the reawakening of the Witch Lord. We are told that Sir Ragnar has gone missing while pursuing her, and we are told the King's army has been defeated and is trapped in Kabakan. All of these plots of course lead into the first 2 expansions, Keller's Keep and Return of the Witch Lord. And this is also where the narrative sort of falls down for me. Firstly, most importantly, the Ragnar plot is left hanging. There is no grand reveal, no satisfying conclusion. You have 10 quests during which it's suggested Ragnar is up to no good. It feels like it's going to be an integral element of the story. You feel like there is going to be a quest where Ragnar makes an appearance and betrays the heroes. But no. He just wanders out of the plot until such time as his treachery can be mentioned in passing later on, and then he can make his underwhelming appearance in Rise of the Dreadmoon. It's such a good plot hook, it's such a good opportunity to flesh out this villain, and it just doesn't happen. But also, for me, the conclusion here emphasises the real issue with making the events of the 2 core sets concurrent. Whatever quest the heroes go on next, it's going to feel like they are outsiders trampling in someone else's story. If they go and play the adventure from the original core set, that won't make sense. Sir Ragnar was rescued before they arrived, and the Witch Lord woke while they were battling Quindrak. If they play Return of the Witch Lord, that story loses a lot of its personal emotional heft. They have never fought the Witch Lord before. His return doesn't mean all that much to them, and it isn't their job to deal with him, it's the job of the heroes who woke him in the first place. In my deep dive video on Return of the Witch Lord, I spoke at length about how invested the player should feel fighting the Witch Lord because the Witch Lord is only a threat due to their actions in the core campaign. Without that element of the story, the Witch Lord is just a generic villain rather than a recurring nemesis. And if the heroes play Keller's Keep, they are going to rescue a king they have never interacted with, in a battle against the forces of Zargon who wasn't even mentioned throughout this campaign. The heroes won't know why the king was fighting, how he lost, or what stakes are even involved. Zargon hasn't been established as the big bad villain at all, as he was only briefly talked about in the introduction to the quest and had no hand in the following proceedings. But I think that's just an issue you have to expect as a product line grows, especially one where you are supposed to be able to play using any heroes you want while playing the quests in any order you want. At some point, it starts to fragment, and that is when a good Zargon player has to step up, weaving their own tales to patch the holes and knit together the disparate threads of the tattered patchwork quilt of an ever-unravelling narrative. But that is it for this video. Overall, I really like this campaign. It has some really interesting ideas, some cool set pieces, some new mechanisms, a good recurring villain, and some fantastic dungeon designs. Yes, I pointed out a few issues, but in the end, I think this is good stuff. Thank you so much for watching. Do remember that First Light is currently available to pre-order in the US at Target, as well as through different retailers in other territories, including Amazon. And as always, if you like the video, please consider pressing the like button. If you really like the video, please consider subscribing if you don't already do so, and hopefully, I'll see you all again very soon. Bye bye everyone. Bye bye.